I went to a boarding school with my two brothers. This was not really a choice, but since I wanted a good life I did not complain. The school was a little odd since it only accepted triplets. It couldn't be so bad since it would only be for a year, we were already 17. We arrived and each set of triplets had to share a room. The room wasn't small, it had 3 separate rooms along with bathrooms, a kitchen, and a living room. It was pretty new so I definitely was not complaining. It was like home except we did not have our parents. The next morning I woke up and breakfast had already been prepared. All of our belongings were put away, so we were all set for school. I went to check where they put everything and I checked the nightstand first. It was empty except for a book. The oddest thing though because it was not my book. I simply ignored this since someone could have left it there from last year. I am inquisitive so I went exploring. It was a lovely little fairy tale of 3 sisters and a boy who were trapped inside of something. I went on with my life and met a set of all-girl triplets. They seemed friendly so I sat with them. They had been there for a couple of years. I asked if they were staying in the same housing as I was. They were surprised to learn where I stayed and apparently it was the nicest place to stay. They came over that afternoon and we talked about our stories. They said as soon as the letter arrived at their house their parents kicked them out and were overjoyed that they would not have to pay for them anymore. I told them that our parents were sad that we had to leave but were thrilled that we would have a quality education. They asked how rich we were. I told them that we were actually pretty poor. They didn't believe me, and I told them I wasn't joking. I changed the subject and asked what kinda housing would be right outside my window. They laughed and said that there weren't any housing places nearby. I said that I thought I saw a young man wave at me as I was reading my book, and he had a huge smile. Oh well, I guess I was just dreaming. They immediately asked what our parents gave each of us $3. I decided to give my $3 to them since they were on their own. As I got ready for bed I glanced over to see the boy, but he wasn't there. The next morning the 3 girls, Kier, Leah, and Rebecca were at the end of my bed yelling at me to wake up. Their $1 turned into $10. I said yeah right, and after a while, it wasn't a big deal, because it turned into $100 the next morning. I began to really read the book. Sure, it had magic, but could this be the place it occurred? I actually got so busy with friends and schoolwork I forgot about searching for the 3 sisters Paisley, Paradise and Prayer, and the boy Ethan. I wanted to watch my brother Edmund play against my other brother Peter. I leaned up against a tree and was enjoying seeing how they gave each other a hard time. That is when a butterfly said to me to be careful because the tree was actually Paisley. I turned around slowly and I couldn't believe it. I grabbed the book and set her free. I asked if she knew where her sisters were along with Ethan, but she said no one knew where one would hide. That was the deal. Peter stopped and stared at her. I will have to admit she was beautiful. She had some odd clothing on, and she even had a sword. Once the shock wore off of everyone she said you and Destiny are having a date soon, because your life is about to change. All of your lives are about to be completely different. Edmund asked if I was going to let her use my clothes, but personally, I loved her dress. It was hard to sleep that night, so I pulled the book out again, and it had completely changed. It now told who they were. They were in line for the throne, but evil invaded the land, and they were supposed to protect everyone, but it was no use. It was said that the boy somewhat admired the girls, but saw him as a brother and the rarest jewel. That is why he was hidden first, then Paradise, followed by Prayer and Paisley. It had to be done because a greater evil would soon invade, and they needed to protect it. Anyway, I put the book down, and that is when I noticed Paisley was right inside my room. She said we couldn't tell anyone else. She felt nervous that the evil was already here, and that if we didn't free them soon it could be a disaster. I didn't want to believe her, but I knew she was right. Since I spent time with Paisley, I often saw Peter close by. Since the 2 of us were missing so many classes, the headmaster came by to talk with us. Apparently, we were both failing everything. At that moment Paisley stepped out of the shower, and in a bathrobe walked into the conversation. Horrified, she ran into my room and locked herself in. She was crying. I went in there and I thought she was just embarrassed, but it was more than that. Supposedly the headmaster was a terrible evil. She felt like a failure and ran back into the gardens and found a secret hiding place. Peter, Edmund, and I chased after her. We made it inside of the covered place. It was covered by leaves, and Paisley backed up step by step until she stumbled and fell. She fell over a flamingo. She stroked the bird and apologized when a butterfly said for her to watch out. All of a sudden the once beautiful flamingo turned into a girl moaning with pain. Paisley hugged her so tightly and told us that this was paradise. Instead of turning Peter's head, Edmund was entranced with her. Paisley filled her in and we headed back. This time we were adamant that they stay hidden. They did pretty well until Rebecca wanted to talk. She was afraid that they would get in trouble because of the money. I kept backing up until I was in my room, and well, Rebecca was not happy that there were two strange girls in my room. She ran out in search of someone to report it to. Well, since we kept running after her, she did not stop until we reached a pond. Rebecca pushed all of us into the water. A bubble formed around each of our heads that allowed us to breathe underwater. The water was filled with seagrass. Peter declared since we found paradise, within a flamingo would we look for prayer. It was actually him who found her hiding place. She was hiding as a seahorse, stuck in the grass. No one saw her appearance because she drifted to the surface. We scurried after her. It took all of us to help her out of the water. She did not waste any time. All she wanted to know was how was the jewel. Rebecca was gone. So I stayed behind to search the pond. I guess she figured that we had been under for too long and figured she was the only one who was there to save us. I searched the woods first, but she wasn't there. I went back to the pond and found her clothes. I thought to myself how gross it would be to see someone naked, but she needed help, so I dove in. Again a bubble surrounded me, but this time it covered my whole body. I searched for her for about 15 minutes before heading through the seagrass. Her foot was surrounded and caught in it. I happened to carry a pocket knife with me, so I pulled it out and cut her loose. Innocently, she had run out of the bubble. I had to help her up to shore. When we reached the shore, I rested for about 30 seconds before making sure she was alive. It took her about 2 minutes to awake. She started to cry when she saw me and blushed when she saw herself. I rushed over to get her clothes. She dressed and we went on our way back to the room. When I entered the room, there was a surprise waiting for me. The boy who waved at me before bed was there. He was totally handsome. Turns out he was the book, the pages were his memories. He wouldn't appear to just anyone, but one who was righteous and true. He told us that we would need all the help we could get. If and only if we trusted them, so I recruited Rebecca, here, Leah. Ethan said that the headmaster and teachers were the bad guys. No matter the consequences, we would have to fight. I mean, the school is pretty cool, but the teachers stink. We all agreed and gathered everything that we would need to fight them. I am not going to tell you that it was easy, and we won with no consequences. That is not true. Actually, Kier and Rebecca were hurt badly. Kier's arms were full of wounds, and Rebecca's chest was as well. My brothers were given plenty of bruises, and their faces are purple and blue, just in time to go home. Paradise and prayer had broken several bones. The good news is we won, and as bad as we look, the bad guys look a lot worse. The teachers and headmaster were locked in a magical prison. As soon as we won, the school disappeared, and a kingdom emerged. Everyone that was a student was actually once a villager in the kingdom. Ethan took back his throne. My family was the only one who wasn't from this world. We were told we had to pick our old world, or here with our friends. We talked about all the pros and cons and finally made a decision. Before we confirmed, we even asked if we could stay and visit our parents, but alas, we were told no. We knew our past was in the world with our parents, but our future in the world with our friends. So we stayed. Fast forward about 5 years and Peter, Edmund, and I are all happily married. Sure, we missed our parents, but we were able to send letters every once in a while. Besides, we are all happy where we are, and would not change it for the world. I married Ethan, Peter was with Paisley, and Edmund was with Paradise. Prayer didn't want a relationship, so she was sworn in as the first protector. Her sisters were too, but she ranked higher. Our kingdom was perfect, for now. Rest assured that we will all happily fight for it if we need to.